Welcome back to Light the Fuse, and I can confidently say this is an episode of Light the Fuse, and also an episode of Light the Zodiac and Light the Tomorrowland as well. Two of our favorite sub-shows.
Well, we're still workshopping those names.
Yeah, exactly.
If anyone out there has any ideas for that, Tomorrowland and Zodiac, give us a shout out for those.
Yeah, we certainly bring them up enough. We've got our Color of Night sub show already named, but we need names for those. So, yeah. Well, what do we want to set this interview up at all, Charles? This is Clint Schultz, part 2.
Well, so yeah, we've got Clint Schultz back for part 2.
Yeah,
and yes, we do talk about Tomorrowland. He, just for a little bit of context, because I wasn't even fully sure, because I had only seen the movie I think once. I need to see Tomorrowland again, clearly. But he talked about, I think he said Nix's pin. Is that Hugh Laurie's character?
That's Hugh Laurie's pen, Charles, is Nix. Yes, of course.
Okay, so I, just for people who need to know that, I had to look up who Nix was while we were doing the interview, just so you know, that's what Nix's pin is. But it's really cool the work that he did on Tomorrowland. He tells some fun stories about that and working with Brad Bird. And when we get into MI3, he talks about shooting Mission Impossible 3. And just for context on Lower Grand, that is a section of downtown Los Angeles where a lot of movies shoot. It's sort of like what else is shot there? Like, did Last Boy Scout shoot there?
Last Boy Scout shot there. I think there's one of the Fast and Furiouses where two cars just collide head on. I think it was actually Furious 7. Collide head on.
I'm sure there's a word for how to describe what that section. It's like sort of underground, but because there's like highways up above, but it's sort of out outside, sort of.
Yeah, it's an underpass scenario, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's a specific urban setting that gets used in a lot of movies. It's in downtown LA. It's called Lower Grand. We'll find some pictures hopefully, and we'll put it in the show notes. Hopefully. So, anyway, anything else?
No, I just want people to, if you see Clint Schultz on the street, come up to him and say, I love your graphics. Because he really works hard on these things, and we appreciate them. I feel like people should acknowledge him. But he's actually great on Twitter. So follow Clint on Twitter. He's a lot of fun. That's how I found his work. Yeah,
that is a good point. Yeah, follow his Twitter profile. He does great stuff over there, and that's what our show is all about is highlighting all the amazing artists who make these movies, and Clint is one of them.
Yeah. When I told Joe that we were trying to get him, when I saw him last summer, he was like, "Oh yeah, he's great. He will really tell you a piece of the filmmaking puzzle that you wouldn't get normally." So I think he's a real get, and I hope you guys enjoy the second part of our conversation with him, and we'll be back afterwards. But before we go, Charles, I have really something important to do, which are my shout outs, obviously.
Of course.
I want to give a shout out to Jeremy Dillon and his podcast, My Favorite Album. I want to let everybody know that this episode is also brought to you by John B., Elvis Ripley, and Suchet. So thank you all so much. We could not do this show without you. And we'll be back afterwards, and hopefully I won't do too crazy of a reintroduction at the end of the episode, but
here we go.
All right. Well, before we get into Mission Impossible 3, and did you do something on Ghost Protocol, or no, not really?
I did the Ares logo.
Okay, all right. Let's pause on that before we get into it. You know what it is? It's time for the section of the show called Drew Asks a Question About Tomorrowland.
Oh, that's a section.
It's a recurring segment, I think, on the show. You designed the pins, right?
I did the pin.
The floor is yours, Clint. Tell us about the pin.
All of them. I did them all.
I know. One of my great regrets in life is they had like a special set of the pins that they sold at the Disney store. I'm sure 50 people in total bought them over the course of, I don't know, a year and a half. But I really wish I had gotten those because they had the 60s pin. They had Nix's pin.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, tell what went into that. Did you know?
The only time you see Nix's pin.
Oh, really?
I think is in there. Yeah. I don't think we see it anywhere else in the film.
It might be. Is it not in the World's Fair sequence?
No, Wars Fair was the 64 pin. He wouldn't have had it on then.
Boy, we're talking about pins, and people are riveted. Clint,
Hey, right? It's a pin that takes you to tomorrow.
yeah, I mean, we love Brad Bird.
Yeah, me too. That's another guy I like working with. He's an artist. It was that was an interesting the design. I've written a lot about that, and I've talked a lot about that. But it was because it has its own fan following, that the movie and that pin. So if I'm famous for anything, it's that pin. And maybe now the helmets, but it was the pin. Brad even gave me a credit in the film. It says pin design and graphics by Clint Schultz. That was my credit. I've never had a credit like that. So that was a really cool thing. But I did I got brought into that. That was I got brought in when they were doing the box. I was brought in very early. Then we shut down for a while because they were getting Clooney. It was, and we changed designers at one point. I think Scott talked about that in his episode. And then of course Scott comes back, and I've had a long history with Scott Chambliss, one of my mentors. So the pin came up, and again, it was, another impossible fabrication task and clearance task that they, need this person needed everything in a week. And it was like, no, you don't, we have time on this. So anyway, it became like a sketch that Brad did. Brad did sketches. Brad does sketches. He did a sketch that was the jetpack, and it has, it was round. It had a little jetpack thing, and it was a T for the jetpack. And so he sent that to me, and I started noodling with that. And I remember just going, it's every way I did it, I was like, this is the Tesla logo. This is the Tesla logo. This is the Tesla logo. And so I remember showing them to Brad and saying, like, I didn't say it was the Tesla logo, but I would have done that if it got that far. But I remember Brad looked at it and went, oh, I can see this just doesn't work. And I was like, okay, thank you. Sometimes it takes like showing them what doesn't work so that you can go your own direction. So I did the faithful takes on Brad's, a lot of them. And he said it wasn't working. And that was just enough crack in the door for me to go, okay, I can step through this door now. Like, now I can come up with my ideas. So I got into ideas, hundreds of ideas. And I got, started messing around with all these. And at one point I took the T from the original Tomorrowland poster, which was a serif thing, which was really tall and skinny and italicized. And I straightened it up and I squatted it down. And for some reason I was like copy pasting it to do a second one. And I moved it down and I saw it. And I was like, oh, that's it. It's got this exploding thing. I can explode this into like a 3-dimensional type, object that's still flat 2D. I remember I drew lines on it. I sent it to Scott and I said, this is something. I said, just check it out. What do you think? I think this is something. And so he's like, yeah, let's talk about it tomorrow. I was really excited. I was like, yeah, we'll talk about it tomorrow. So the next day I went in and developed it and completely did it. And then, then brought in the atom thing. And then there was one that had the atom on it. Nix's had an atom that, went bigger than the circle. And I remember that was the deal. And then there was one in the middle. And I was like, okay, so there was one in the middle that was the 1984 version. So there was the 64 version, the 84 version, and this Nix version. And those were the 3 versions. And we took those into a meeting, and I did the colorways, and we took them into a meeting to get Brad to sign off on one. And he came in and he walked in and he goes, now that's a pin, that's a logo. And I was like, oh, thank God, And I was like, which one do you like? And he's like, I like them all, And so right then he just went, there's the 64, that's the 84, and that one can be the Nix pin. And I was like, we went from we only have 3 weeks to build these and we're still in the design phase to done, all approved, out the door, get it to legal, and let's get these things fabricated. It was really awesome.
Great. Well, thank you for indulging me. That was the section of the show. Drew asked a question about Tomorrowland. Now we can get into Mission Impossible.
What about the Jackie Chan? Is there not a Jackie Chan section in my interview?
Wait,
Charles,
what Jackie Chan movie did you do?
With Tom Sanders, Around the World in 80 Days. We did a version of Around the World in 80 Days before.
Oh, wow.
Before they did end up switching designers, and I don't know, but I remember we made an awesome Nautilus, which I never saw. I don't know that I saw that film, but we made an amazing Nautilus with Tom Sanders.
I don't think the Nautilus is in the film at all.
Might not be. It was in our version.
I don't remember the movie very well, but it would have been the submarine, right?
Yeah, submarine underwater. Yeah.
Okay.
It was really cool. We spent months and months and months on it, and then
No, I don't think they ever do go. They only have a flying device at the end. I don't think they go underwater.
yeah, they went to Germany or somewhere, and then everybody sort of ended up coming home, and the movie got made by somebody else or something like that. But yeah,
Oh boy.
that was it. But it was another loose Mission Impossible connection, because Kavanaugh was there, I was there, Dorrance was there, Sanders was there, Naaman Marsh was there. A lot of guys you've had on the show or Mission people.
We love that. Well, talk to us about 3 and what you already alluded to. You did some graphics on a Chinese truck that was shot in Los Angeles.
Down a Lower Grand, which I think I've shot in everyone's shot in 5 times at this point. Yes. But that was, oh my God, that was most expensive graphics set I've ever done in my life. Because everything had to be changed to Chinese signage, and we didn't know exactly where we'd be or exactly where the camera would be. And because it's all in English, it all had to be done in Chinese. So we covered everything: parking signs, any street sign. We had all those trucks we had to get down there, taxi cabs, huge billboards, better city, better life. And then, the big sliding truck, the big jackknifing truck. That was easily the most expensive set graphically that I'd done at that point. And I remember getting, I remember like one of the art directors, I think it was Kurt Beach on that set, I think he got his hand slapped over some of the money we spent on graphics, just covering every ounce of that. And then he called me on Transformers or another show and said, "You're not going to believe this, but we're doing Lower Grand as Chinese. Do you still have all those signs?" I said, "Yeah, I'll go to work for you." So yeah, it was one of those deals that ended up playing.
Were you able to wait? Did they get reused for Transformers?
I assume that some of them might have gotten reused, but yeah, it was one of those. He just asked if I still had them all. I don't remember how it at all. I don't want to cross franchises here.
Listen, that is fun. I mean, we love people getting paid twice for one job, and we salute you.
But I had to bring in a translator for that, and but we had a translator for that, and the Chinese hospital at the end had a translator as well, because that was a lot of signs as well. What else? I got brought in Dan Dorrance, who supervised on MI2, and I had done Collateral with. Brought me in. Him and Tom Sanders basically got me in the union. They didn't basically. And then he introduced me to Scott Chambliss, who the introduction to JJ was pretty quick. I remember getting the film. I remember going into Paramount, meeting Scott, and he goes, "Will you do a good job for me?" And I said, "Sure." And he goes, "You're hired." And that was Scott. I didn't realize that I would spend, so much of my career with that man, but it's all been really good. At that time. But yeah, so, and then they sent us in, I remember when we were in bungalows at Paramount, and they sent us in, I don't know if anybody's told this story. They said, "Have you read the script yet?" And they sent us into a room across there was another bungalow that had a guy sitting at a table. It was very Mission Impossible. A PA or somebody was sitting at a table. And he said, "You're here to read the script." And I had to sign something. And I remember he opened up a door to this little office, and there was a safe on the counter and a dictionary. And I can't remember if there was a pad of paper and a pen or not. I feel like there was, like a small pad of paper, not one that you could fill up. And he opened the safe, and he pulled out the script, and the script was printed on tinfoil, like on Mylar film, so that it couldn't be photocopied or photos could be taken of it, which this is all pre-smartphone anyway. But yeah, and so he pulled it out, and we read the script on these Mylar pages, and you had a dictionary there, which I was told JJ and Tom decided, in case you need to look something up, it was there for you to refer to, and then you had this little pad of paper where you could make a couple notes, and that's how I read Mission 3.
Wow,
that's amazing. So were you drawing things, or were you just sort of like bad guy in chair or whatever?
No, I always do like a really bad graphics breakdown. That's always my first rip off when I do that. The script read is like, Chinese office. Okay, office would have some, or if something's called out specifically as a prop or something that I know is going to have a graphic on it, then I just make some notes on it. So that was my little breakdown.
Well, did you work on the rabbit's foot at all?
The rabbit's foot?
Perhaps one of the most iconic props in Mission franchise. Charles, would you back me up on that?
Is it?
That it's one of the most iconic props?
Yeah.
In the franchise? Yeah. I mean, did you work on that? Like I said, sort of like a radioactive symbol on it, right? Something kind of...
I don't remember that. I don't remember working on that.
Oh, boy.
I don't. I don't remember that. I don't remember working on that. I'll have to look back through files. I don't remember working on that.
Well, you've disappointed us, Clint.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What else you got?
So you worked on 3, and then you worked on the logo for the.
Wait. Before we get that, before we get to Ghost Project, just quickly, because you said before a while back about JJ that you loved working with JJ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
So just tell us about that working relationship and what it was like with him.
I remember. So he did the MI3. Oh, I got a couple stories. Okay, so he did the MI3. So that block, what became the logo, the one with the double colons, which I've heard you call out before, not the dash. So, which by the way, is this going to be part of 3pril? Is this going to play in 3pril? My episode.
We don't know if 3pril is coming back this year. But it would be great to bring it back.
Wow.
I mean,
you're digging deep into our old episodes.
I did a little homework.
3pril. That was like 4 years ago or something.
Well, it's March what? March something here. If you delay this a little bit, this could be a 3pril episode.
It'll still probably air in 3pril. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so or feel free to cut this out if you don't want to revive it. But I remember JJ did, they said, hey, do a Mission Impossible logo and, a car card or whatever it was. And I remember spinning on that for a week or two, whatever it was. And I remember he said, they brought him in for a meeting. It's like, oh, hey, Clint did a bunch of MI3 logos. And he went, well, I already did the logo. And they're like, what logo? And he's like, the one's on the script, the Mylar script. So, and it was like a House Industries font called Bullet. And it just said the MI3. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what it was. And I remember going over and they let me take a photocopy, or he sent me a picture of it or something. And I called the guys at House. I got it back. I did a couple double outlines on it. And then we presented it to him in like title, because they needed to get title blocks on these drawings and things like that. And that was really my first introduction to him. They're like, Clint, this is JJ. And hey, Clint he found the logo and he did a couple things on it. And JJ said, okay, that's cool. And he got a red pencil, because I think they were there doing drawings or marking up drawings, and he started coloring in the MI3 in red. And then he pushed it back across the desk and goes, that's it. That's done. Signed off. I was like, oh, so you just want it red? And he's like, yeah. And I remember Chambliss had him sign it, and Chambliss said, we're keeping that. That was the easiest logo, we ever had done. I was like, yeah, well, it helps when the, director designs the logo or some version of it.
Wow.
But and then I remember, and so this doesn't, you guys can tell me this. So the IMF logo, he wanted to do something completely different with the IMF logo. We did this round IMF logo. It's in when you see Carrie's badge flashed on the screen, and it was round, and it had a dot for an I, and it had 3 dots for the M on the bottom, and then it had the 2 dots for the F in the top, and it was a black symbol. And it's when he hands the envelope at the end of the movie, that symbol, that round symbol, is on the envelope, and that was the IMF logo that JJ wanted to use. And I spent a lot of time doing that and making it this round thing, and it's in the movie quite a few times, but I've never seen it since. I've seen the soundtrack reissued, and they all go back to that sort of 60s round IMF logo. They don't ever use that, even when they reissued. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry that they didn't use it again.
Well, I think Mondo reissued the Giacchino soundtrack a few years ago, and I was like, that's not the logo. That's not the IMF logo. That's not that. I did it. It's mine. So yeah.
Wow.
And then I ended up taking that. This ties even further. So when we did Star Trek Into Darkness, I had that symbol, and we were doing the ship that they go to Klingon in, and it needed a language, and I turned that symbol into a working alphabet based on Morse code loosely. And I did the whole ship based on that. And I remember selling it to JJ going, remember the IMF logo? Or Scott, and I said, remember that IMF logo? What if we did that as a whole language? And that's how that became
the little hamburger.
Yeah, the hamburger ship.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that logo got, I exploded that into a whole language. Nerubian, I believe, was the ship.
And you ended up working with JJ quite a bit, to Charles's point.
I did all of.
Tell us what the 3 dots. Well, tell us what the 3 dots in Super 8 were supposed to mean.
I don't know. I mean, it was just, I remember them asking me for 3 dots. I do remember that. And maybe I did 3 squares too. I don't know. I don't know what that but
Charles, do you even know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember. I only saw Super 8, I think once, maybe twice.
they're on the cargo containers that they're driving through town that carry all the Rubik's cubes.
The bad guys, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was just to identify that, you know, I just remember being an identification mark. I don't remember it being a big sort of thing. Like we need this big, it was just something simple that could go on the side of a shipping container that would signify, you know, these are different from everybody else's.
All right, let's get into it. You designed the logo for the fake name for Mission Impossible 4. Tell us about that.
Let's see, fake logo. That was...
So Ghost Protocol originally was called Project Ares, right? That was the original
that's
subtitle
right.
for the movie?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And I was working on, I just turned down Moneyball, which was my dream movie, to do We Bought a Zoo with Cameron Crowe, and it got shut down. And I wound up on a Transformers for a few weeks covering for Susan Burek, who's another graphic designer who's done quite a few things. And whose husband, Tim Flattery's done quite a few things with JJ and in that world, including being my office mate on MI3. Anyway, so I remember getting a call. They had somebody else working on a logo. They weren't loving what they were getting. They called me, and I don't remember if Harper called me or Chernoff called me. I don't remember who called me on that, but it somehow came through those channels. And they called me. I did a few pages of logos, and I sent them over. And at the time, they were shooting that in LA. And so because my show had shut down, I was trying pretty desperately to get onto that show. And Susan, the person I was covering for, claimed she already had that show. So I was, you know, elbowing, trying to get in because she was still very deep in Transformers. And I remember doing the logo. I never saw it. I never knew if they used it. I saw that Gormley, once we got on, maybe it was, I don't remember which one I did after that, but Tommy Gormley, the AD, came in and he had an Ares jacket on. I was like, oh, they did use the logo. That was the only time I saw it.
Wait, did you do the 4 dots?
Yeah, I think there's 4 dots on it.
Oh my God, that's our favorite logo. We
Favorite
love
fake
that
logo?
It's the MI with the 4 dots. We have a hat. We got the hat.
Did I do that? Maybe I did that. Was there a hat? I don't know.
It sounds like a real Clint Schultz special. Dots in a specific
dots,
array.
Dots and
I think
dot
that was
pattern.
it.
Dot patterns, yes.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams films or produced films. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I don't.
Wow.
That all happened really fast, and that was my contribution. Then they went to Canada. The film shut down or stopped its L.A. movement, and it went to Canada. And I eventually wound up on We Bought a Zoo. There you go.
Wow.
Let me see.
There it is.
Oh, that's a maybe. That
it?
looks familiar. I have to look at the files. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, maybe.
We're giving you credit regardless.
I'll take it.
Yeah. And then, so are you working on, did Charles ask you this before I came on? Are you working on Ray Gun?
What's Ray Gun?
Wow.
Oh, with a big smile on his face.
That is a real non-answer.
I really I don't have any idea what Ray Gun is. What is Ray Gun?
Okay.
For those that don't know.
It is Brad Bird's new film. Because Jim Bissell is actually doing the prop work, but he's just designing props that they're just turning into animated props in the movie.
Okay.
So I wanted to know maybe if you were on that same.
I have not heard from Mr. Bird in a while. He's one person I need to check in with, and I do occasionally check in with. But once he sort of went back to the animation world and forgot about his live action friends, but it sounds like he might be.
Didn't. If Bissell's on this movie, he didn't really forget. He's combining
back.
The worlds. Yeah.
He's back. We at the Art Directors Guild. Brad was inducted a few years ago with a Lifetime Achievement Award of some sort, cinematic visionary sort of award. I saw him and his wife at that. We've traded some email, especially around the time that Incredibles 2 came out, but I haven't talked to Brad in a while. But I would gladly. These are easy. Like Brad, Joe, JJ. I'm here, standing by.
Love it.
Those are easy decisions to make with those guys. And JJ was, I ended up doing, except for the last Star Wars, I worked on every JJ directed film, which I don't think a lot of people can say. It was like me and Tommy Gormley, and I think then once Star Wars happened, then that became really rare because or Force Awakens happened, that became pretty rare because they used all UK crew for that most part. There was a few of us that bridged it.
Well, Clint, you didn't miss out on that last Star Wars, let's be honest. But Charles, do you want to ask about working with David Fincher here before we wrap up?
Yes, I do. I want to hear Zodiac. What did you do for Zodiac? That's one of our favorite movies.
I have really random pieces on all these things. But yeah, that one was.
I mean, there's a lot of documentation and
I did the yearbook.
Inserts of documents and things in that movie.
Documents like you wouldn't believe.
Fincher describes that movie as being like being locked in a filing cabinet for 2 hours.
Another guy I love, and I mean that guy is awesome. I mean, I love his movies and I love him. I mean, man, that's like don't bring anything but A+. I mean, you don't want to ever bring anything but A+, but don't bring anything but A+ to him. And if you are not bringing A+, you better be able to prove why you're not doing it. And case in point is this one thing. So at the end of the movie, they have a guy that comes. I can't remember. He comes in the door. I can't remember all the whole thing. But he's the one guy who might have saw the Zodiac killer, right?
Yeah, they look at the yearbook.
The yearbook. I did the yearbook. So the yearbook, there was a yearbook.
Oh, wow.
So there's a yearbook page, and Hope Parrish, the prop master, called me, and they were at some stages in Hollywood. They were doing reshoots, and with Gyllenhaal on a phone, I remember, in a room or something. And so they set me up on a 6-foot table on the side of the stage, and gave me this yearbook that I was going to have to put, and we had no photos. We had nothing. It's just like, hey, it's a yearbook. And we have one photo of this guy. Okay. So we go in, I start laying out the yearbook. I start, what year is it? We start calling, like I called my mom. I called, Hope called a bunch of people she knew who would have graduated in the 70s sort of. And so they started submitting pictures on the fly, and David would come over in between very long takes or whenever there was a break and like poke his head around my shoulder and go, well, how's it going there? And he'd kind of look, but not look, not examine. He'd just look. Oh, how's it going? All right. So there are people in that yearbook that are like literally my family friends or my aunts and uncles and, that are all surrounding this guy's photo. And he would just, like I said, just kind of look and poke his head in. So we finally got to a point and they were like, well, this guy was technically a twin, so we made a second photo of him and kind of changed his face around a little bit so he wasn't an identical twin, and there was that version, all that. So we took it to David, and he sits there, and so now he's ready to like legitimately examine them. And he starts looking at him, and he goes, no, this isn't going to work. He's like, these people aren't sitting the same direction. Like this photo looks like it was taken here, and this is all, none of these are, cohesive. Like it was like a prep school or something. He's like, it's not, none of this is cohesive. He goes, they wouldn't have done that. The yearbooks didn't look like that. And I remember like I had a yearbook because I just flipped it open and went, there it is. That's how they did it. And he looked at it and goes, yeah, I guess you're right. All right, so it looks good to me. And that was it. The yearbook played.
Wow. A man who stood up to David Fincher.
Bring your A game or have a good reason. And they were like, just open the book and like, there it is. I didn't stand up. I was like, well, they did do that, David. It was much nicer than that. Well, David, actually, they did do that. And I happen to have a yearbook from 1969, and this is what it would have looked like. And yeah, it was at that point, he was great. But I love working with him. I did Benjamin Buttons with him, and I did the wall in Dragon Tattoo. That was a lot of evidence.
In the cabin, like in Daniel Craig's cabin. That whole
when he's penned. Yeah, I did that wall because we reshot. They did it there, and then they wanted more details and more pieces here, and I did it here. And then Benjamin Buttons, I did all the postcards, all the stuff that she's going through in the hospital with her mom, that he'd written to her over the years.
Right.
A lot of that sort of prop stuff.
Wow.
I was connected to the prop master on all those, so it just sort of wound up doing a lot of prop stuff.
Well, Clint, I feel like we could interrogate you for the next several years about all the work you've done. But
especially how long it's taken this to actually finally happen. So yes.
I know. Well, now
it's
if you do
fault.
another Mission Impossible or something, you have to come on sooner than a year or something. But you have anything you want to plug? What do you have coming up?
Let's see. We said, okay, Maverick, Fablemans, and 65 is in theaters now. I don't think there's anything this year until the end of the year. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon will be next.
Oh, that must have been fun. That's like a Star Wars. I mean,
Yeah.
that literally came from his Star Wars movie. Yeah.
Electric State will be after that. And then with Millie Bobby Brown on also Netflix. And then, like I told you guys before, I'm waiting to start something else. Other than that, no, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CSDesign72. That's about it.
And if you have any designs you want us to include in our show notes or tweet out with this episode, please send them our way, and we'd love to do that.
I will find the Ares logo.
Yes, please.
That's
all we care about.
I don't know if we have time to rank movies, but do you have your favorite? Do you have a favorite of the series?
Well, I said he only saw 3.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I have a favorite of the 3. Does that work?
Yeah, what's your favorite?
I have a favorite Tom Cruise hair.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I throw another story in? Another Tom story?
Of course.
Let's hear it.
So, favorite hair 3. When we did Maverick, again, we're backdating that wall a little bit, trying to get him younger. And some of the things. So, one of the things I hired Oliver Barrett to do an illustration of Tom. That's, if it's in the movie at all, it would be barely. Because so we had an illustration of him standing by a plane, and he drew this beautiful photo of Tom and all that, and the hair just wasn't quite right. And every time he kept coming back, and it's like, well, and he didn't have any real recent photos of Tom and how he was looking on set. I'd sent some, but we didn't want him wearing a helmet. So I remember and he's supposed to be a little bit younger, and I remember sending Oliver, I had stills from MI3, and I was like, make his hair look like this. Make his hair look like this. That's what it looked like when he was flying this plane. So, Oliver literally took Tom's hair from MI3 and put it on the drawing that wound up in Maverick. So yes, that's my favorite Tom Cruise hair. 3, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2. I'm not sure. I like all 3 of those movies.
Okay, Clint. Well, catch up next time. So the next time you can actually rank them all. Yeah.
I feel bad for not seeing Brad's. I hear it's really good. It's
great. You did the logo. Come on. This might be why you haven't gotten the call for Ray Gun, Clint. I'm just gonna say.
I'm gonna email Brad now. Now it's out there. Yeah. Yes. Now I feel bad. Now it's out there.
Well, thank you so much, guys, and we'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Welcome back.
Well, we're back. I'm just going to ignore that. We might have to start bribing Drew. I think some of the Patreon money is going to have to go to bribing Drew to just talk normally coming out of the interview.
But then I feel like I've set a dangerous precedent where if I do start to talk normal, we'll get some backlash. So,
please, those of you out there who have an opinion on this, please express it on social media. Let us know if Drew should stop or if he needs to keep going.
If we could still do Twitter polls, thanks a lot, Elon. We would put this up, but we cannot anymore.
Are there no more polls on Twitter?
Not unless you pay for Twitter Blue.
Oh, okay. Jeez. All right. Well,
very cool. Very cool.
Okay. Anyway. Hey, look, Elon, we're out here. We're just trying to run a Patreon. We don't have all the money in the world to pay for making polls on Twitter. Okay.
You should really have thought about that.
So do we know which? We talked about shooting in Lower Grand. Do we know which Transformers movie shot in Lower Grand for China?
Oh, I don't know, because I think they've gone to China at least once before.
But he said that they reused all of his signage from MI3 to shoot some Transformers movie in Lower Grand for China. So I'm trying to remember which Transformers movie went to China. I don't think it was Dark of the Moon.
There was one with Stanley Tucci that they went to China with the dinosaurs or whatever.
Okay.
Is that Age of Extinction, maybe?
All right. Well, if we can find a clip or picture or something, we'll pull it. We'll put it in the show notes if we can. Which obviously, everybody check out our show notes at LightTheFuse-podcast.com. In the episode guide, you'll see show notes for all of our episodes going all the way back to the beginning. Clint also brought up 3PRL, which I totally forgot about. I love that he's been listening to the show, and so he knew about 3PRL. When did we? That must have been like in 2020 that we did 3PRL.
It must have been. Yeah. I mean, we really screwed up by not engaging in 3PRL this year.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll do it next year because that'll be a little lull before 8 ramps up.
But unfortunately, his episode is coming out in May, and so he can't be. This isn't 3PRL. This is, I don't know.
It's spiritually in 3PRL, though, I feel.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And then the round IMF logo on the folder at the end of MI3. It took me a second to find. Actually, he had to send us a photo of it, but we have photos in our show notes for this episode. You will see the round IMF logo that he refers to, that he created as the IMF logo that was never. He was like upset that they didn't ever use it ever again. It's a cool looking, like,
I think
very
it's really
discreet
cool.
logo. Yeah, it's really cool. It'd be fun if they brought it back at some point.
We should put it on a shirt or something.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's me teeing you up to talk about the shirt.
That's pretty great. Yeah. Well, hey, if you want a shirt, we don't have the round IMF logo from MI3 on a shirt, but we have other shirts. And we even have Light the Fuselage shirts at our TeePublic store, tpublic.com/user/lightthefusepod, I think. But I know one way you can definitely get to that link is to go to our website, lightthefusepodcast.com, and go to the merch tab, and then there is a direct link to our TeePublic store there. And hey, he designed the 4 dots logo. We have to talk about this. The 4 dots logo that we've been obsessed with from the beginning of the show, because we saw Brad Bird wearing the hat with the 4 dots logo from Ghost Protocol. And we've been obsessed with it ever since we finally got the hat from Seth Worley.
Wasn't somebody else going to give us another hat so we could both wear it at the same time in the same place?
We need to get it. We need to get it from someone else.
Yeah.
You're right. That's true.
We love that logo, though. But that's very cool. Having designed the logo for the code-named version of the movie is really neat. And he actually sent us some art that we're going to share on the website and on social media that
yes,
you will love to see. It's very cool. But anyway,
and we'll put the Tomorrowland pin as well that he designed. That logo is really, really cool. We're going to put that. Well, that'll all be in the show notes as well. And of course, follow him on Twitter. He's got great stuff on there for Top Gun Maverick and all of his work. And oh my God, I realized this afterwards. How did we not talk to him about Collateral?
I know. I wonder what he did for Collateral. Maybe we'll just have to have him back.
Yeah. Have him back. Send him an email, maybe. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Anyway, unless you've got anything else, I've got shout-outs. I got thank yous I got to give.
Okay, give a shout-out. And then I'm really curious about what Patreon is. So.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, I'll give a special thank you to Winston Riggs, to Matthew Costa, and to Eddie Santos. Thanks, Winston, Matthew, and Eddie, for making this episode possible. If you want to be a sponsor of our show, or if you just want bonus content every week from us, you can sign up for our Patreon. And the Patreon actually allows for this show to continue to go on for the many years that it has been going on.
Maybe I don't like the Patreon in that regard.
Maybe we need to shut that Patreon down.
Yeah, maybe we need to...
so that...
cool it on the
so that we don't have to keep doing the show.
Yes.
I think someone out there should start a Patreon to bribe Drew to stop doing what he does coming out of the interviews. That's what
I'll
we
do
need.
it. I have a price, Charles. I will do it for a certain amount.
Hey, with a Patreon, you can set goals of a certain amount of money you want to hit per month, So Drew's telling you out there right now, if you don't want him to do that coming out of the interviews every week, then you're going to have to hit a certain price.
That's true. We should set a new level of Patreon. That is, make me be normal on the show.
The Make Drew Be Normal tier.
Yes.
Patreon. I think... also, I want to give credit to our editor and mixer, Luke Burson, of course, for all the incredible work that he does, and to our music composer, Kevin Blumenfeld, who's always out there risking his legal status, his freedom. He's just out there giving a middle finger to Paramount, just writing music too close to their copyrights. And, he doesn't care. He's out there, and it's very brave of him. We appreciate him for that. And with that, I think that's our show. We will be back next week with something great. We've got an interview in the bank that it might be next week's episode, or it might be something else. Remains to be seen. We thank you all so much for making this possible. Be sure to follow us on social media at LightTheFusePod. And we'll see you next week. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.